I'm Inez Lagarda from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, and thank you for joining the Flintstones Press Room. Oh, Eric's in. Let's admit him. Admit. Okay, we've got Eric. Let's hang on for a second. Eric, good morning.
I had to gather all the most Warner Brother things in my house together.
You got it.
Hopefully I meet the requirements.
Right.
We'll let you stay in this one. How about that? All right. So good morning again. So I'm Inez, and we are going to get started with our press room with the Flintstones release. Let me introduce you to who we have today. Director, producer, Tony Cervone. He was responsible for SCOOB and the Flintstones and WWE Stone Age Smackdown. Can't say that as well as Yvette in the panel, but there it is. Actor Jeff Bergman, star of Our Cartoon President and voice of Fred Flintstone on multiple occasions. Next, we have Eric Bauza, voice of Bugs Bunny on Looney Tunes Cartoons and the frequent voice of Bam-Bam and Dino. Last, we have animation historian and author Jerry Beck. A few reminders that the Flintstones, the complete series, is now available on digital and coming on to Blu-ray Tuesday, October 27th. If you missed any of the panel today, that was earlier today, you guys can catch it back on New York Comic Con's YouTube page. In regards to this press room, we will send you a link later on this afternoon so you can pull what you need. Now let's get started with the first question. The first question is for Jerry. Stefan from Forces of Geek. The Flintstones was the first primetime animated series. What sets it apart from the other series? And do you think that there is a place in the 21st century for a primetime incarnation of Hanna-Barbera properties?
Wow. Sounds like 2 or 3 great questions in there. There's, okay, I don't even know where to begin, but the Flintstones, what sets it apart, obviously in the very beginning, it was the first primetime animated series aimed at adults for television. TV animation before the Flintstones, you know, the Yogi Bear, Rough and Ready, not to mention things like Tom Terrific and Crusader Rabbit, were all aimed at children for the most part. The Flintstones was taking animation to where live action on television was at that time, which was sitcoms. It was a shock to people who came out. I'm old enough to actually have been alive and see the Flintstones when it was first on, and it was unbelievable to people. It was a surprise. It was a surprise hit because it was good. It looked good. It was funny. It was definitely worthy of being a big bang for television animation and television animation in prime time. When people were forgetting that animation was always for adults, in my opinion, the animated shorts that used to be made for theaters, the ones like Hanna-Barbera had done with Tom and Jerry, by 1960, animation was being devolved as a children's medium only, really. And it took Hanna-Barbera and the Flintstones and then their later primetime series to really revive that idea that animation can be for everyone. Now, I think the other question you had about reviving it for the 21st century or any Hanna-Barbera shows is what I think you said, because I totally agree with that. I totally believe in that. It absolutely could be done. Animation characters are timeless and immortal. They don't age. And as long as we have people like Jeff Bergman and Eric Bauza around and directors like Tony, the characters could be as fresh and funny and, alive as they've always been. So I have no doubt we could do a modern day version of these characters.
Next question is for everyone. Vic from Drop the Spotlight asks, with so many generations having enjoyed the original series, what is the one thing you want a new generation to know when they first watch an episode of the Flintstones?
Wow. Well, the first thing people should know, and I'll just quickly answer, is that, as I said already, is that these were not aimed down at kids, at least the first two seasons before Pebbles, Bam Bam, the Great Kazoo, and the Gruesomes. You know, the first two seasons are pretty hip, and they're pretty much, grown-up shows. And they were sponsored by Winston cigarettes originally. So I think, people should just be aware of that. That's my
for me, it's just how timeless the characters are. I mean, I think no, and also just the situations and even though it's a prehistoric background, just their everyday living it really hasn't. I mean, if you were to put them on TV today with current situations, I feel like it'd still be very relatable. There's nothing about the Flintstones as a family that is any different than any family that is, watching TV today. Think about all the streaming jokes you could do, with today's audience, and I don't know. I just any chance you can go back to those original designs as well, like Stone Age Smackdown was a pretty good example of that. Modern animation, but it still kind of felt like the original, especially that opening. Thank God for Jeff Bergman, because man, oh man, the sound that he makes, the Alan Reed Flintstone is, I've heard it in a room in person, and it is insane. I always have to check to see if someone's hiding behind a curtain doing this. Like it's magic when Jeff does Fred's voice. It's kind of one of my favorite voices that he does in his magical bag of tricks that he has. So Fred is alive and well, thanks to Jeff Bergman.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Eric on the designs. I love the designs on the WWE meets the Flintstones, but it was a little bit more modernized for this era. But when Jerry mentioned the Winston's commercial, the cigarette commercial, I remember when I first saw that, and the thing that I always loved about it was that Fred and Barney are sneaking in the back, sneaking a cigarette from Betty and Wilma, and it'd be so cool if it could just continue on where Fred and Barney are up to their old tricks and investing in this scheme or that scheme. And remembering that when they did the vitamin commercial, I think, or the cereal commercial, people would say, well, how come Betty and Wilma aren't in the commercials? And I guess when they did testing, they found that kids thought that Betty and Wilma get in the way of Fred and Barney's good time. So, it'd just be great to see them, like as they were up to their old tricks, just as if it never was off the air.
Tony? Did you want to say something?
I mean, just to add to what everyone else is saying, I feel the same way, that these are adult characters with usually adult issues, like it's always about Fred loses his job and doesn't have money to pay for something. Like they're adult family issues that that is the basis of all the stories. So I like any cartoon that's layered and that really works for kids and adults. And the Flintstones absolutely does that.
The next question is also for all of you. Gareth from Skewed and Reviewed. What are the main reasons for the success and longevity of the franchise?
Mm-hmm. Their initial popularity was so large. I mean, I know we're living in a world of 30 years of The Simpsons, but 6 seasons in prime time in the 60s was pretty amazing to this day. And it never really went off. They went right into Saturday morning. They evolved the series. That's another thing. They had Pebbles and Bam Bam grow up. They obviously put them in some other situations. Some of them I think are embarrassing, maybe like Fred and Barney meet the Shmoo or something like that. But they just were there. They're part of our, the consciousness, part of the, the soundtrack of our lifetime. So I think that's part of it. I just think the weird, unique idea of it, guys in tiger skins, walking around half naked. I mean, the whole thing, driving the car with your feet. I mean, these are indelible images, not to mention that theme song, by the way. These are all things that we've all lived with and, just they're not going to go away, and I'm glad.
I think that one of the keys to their longevity, and it's the same thing to me that with like the best of all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like Scooby, like Scooby-Doo and the gang, is relationships, right?
Yeah.
That Fred and Barney fight like crazy, and sometimes Fred does something nasty, but they're best friends, and at the end of the day, they will always support each other. And that Fred is a loudmouth and sometimes, you know, not the nicest person in the world to Wilma, but there's no disputing how much he loves her and how dedicated he is to her. So I always feel like that is the thing that kind of keeps it around and keeps holding together, because those are things that will always be relatable, right? Those are eternal things. So it's the characters and their relationships, I do feel, is really the cement that keeps you coming back.
Yeah,
I guess cement wouldn't let you leave in the first place, right? Like,
Jeff?
Yeah, I feel that way too. I agree with Tony. It's, I mean, you always knew that Wilma and Fred loved each other at the end of the episode. No matter how much he messed up, they will always forgive each other. And I don't think I realized it when I was watching it as a kid, but it resembled the Honeymooners so much that Ralph Cramden always, he was a loudmouth, blowhard, but at the end he apologized and said, and just got back into the good graces of Alice, and so we feel the kind of the same thing, and it's really relationships. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons that we all kind of come back to it. The Simpsons does something very similar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, and The Simpsons always refers to the Flintstones as well, for many inside jokes and like just straight. I mean, sometimes they take the sound effects from, from the Flintstones. The sound, the music track, again, me as a very, a visual kind of person, I always look forward to seeing what animals were used as what appliances in every episode as a kid, always. I mean, and also, when I was watching, it was during like the 80s and 90s, and they merchandised the crap out of it for my generation. It was like on every hoodie, it was almost everywhere. I have a like almost life-size Dino-sized piggy bank around here somewhere. I don't know. In Canada, we had Canada's Wonderland, and it was our theme park before Paramount Parks took over. They had Hanna-Barbera Land, and they had Flintstones mini golf. It was the best, like for a kid, it was the most amazing experience you could have. It was the size chart was a Barney Rubble. You have to be this, this size to play here, and
That's cute.
character. I don't know. I just the overall. I loved trying to draw those characters as a kid. I used to just get the sketch pad out and doodle and draw, try to figure out Fred and Barney. I always wondered what that line was that resembled 5 o'clock shadow, and now I know.
Okay. Next question is for Jeff. Gareth from Skewed and Reviewed. How do you bring Fred to a more modern audience, yet stay true to the original versions of the character?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it depends on who's directing it. Some of the directors, the way they direct it, Alan Reed, who was the original Fred Flintstone, he had such, I don't want to call it phlegm. I mean, but he was very, had a lot of phlegm in there and garbly. And sometimes we kind of clean it up a little bit for clarity. I think he might have been a heavy smoker too. So, that's certainly one of the reasons. But again, it's the way it's written, and putting them in very modern day situations really helps to move the characters forward, and advance them into today's world.
Next question is for all of you. Mark from Toon Barn. Could Fred Flintstone get away with some of the behaviors he exhibited on the original Flintstones today, with the respect to his relationships with his friends, family, and co-workers?
I almost feel like he's definitely the guy that always he's the fall guy of the show. He always tries to aim high and then maybe cut corners. and I feel like he's gotta hit bottom before he learns his lesson. I think, right? I feel that's almost every episode. There's something where he messes up at the risk of his marriage and friendship or at his job. But I feel like that's the whole lesson, right? I feel like that's. I don't think that there was really anything too risque that they did back then that they couldn't probably get away with today, especially in a prime time setting.
Yeah.
See worse things on Family Guy.
Yeah, for sure.
The original show was part of its time, you know, and things have changed in society. But I saw a new show. We're going off into the fantasy of a new show. But if there was a new show, I guess they'd have to rearrange. And Wilma probably would be working, I suppose. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anything. Maybe there is something. I just can't think of one offhand of where Fred does something absolutely outrageous that nobody would do today. It's just the way they're set up. Where thinking of the test film where Wilma's bringing him drinks while His Majesty is in the pool. But even that little sequence from like the first episode is like it's making fun of Fred. It's not, you know, negative. In fact, Wilma looks like the smart one, of course, in that one, as she is. So I don't know. I don't know if what you'd change exactly.
Anyone else? What's that? Okay. All right, let's move to the next one. This one's for you, Eric. Gareth from Skewed and Reviewed. What would you say are the biggest differences in recording and preparing for Bam Bam versus Dino? And what is more difficult to voice?
Oh, Dino for sure is more difficult. I think I was on our actual New York Comic Con panel. I tried doing it after not doing it for a long time. like the inhaling bark. And it's like, it's that taxing on the voice. Bam Bam, originally voiced by Don Messick. And in Flintstones WWE Smackdown, I got to play all the characters that only say two words, pretty much. Bam Bam, Hoppy, and Dino. Bam, bam, bam! There's something about my pipes, I guess, you know, that I get into that Don Messick area, like Dr. Quest. Johnny, Haji, we have to stick with Race. He's there to protect us. It's this weird thing. Like, I don't do a lot of man, I'm blanking on the name. Anytime I've auditioned for, you know, Elroy, I don't get it because I ended up voicing Elroy's friend who usually was Don Messick in that cast. It was whoever was sitting next to Elroy, like, oh, you know, a Don Messick kid voice is where my pipes lie when I do that. So for whatever reason, Don Messick, who also voiced Hoppy as well, just sits well in my register. So it's not too hard to maneuver between those two. But we did Yabba Dabba Dinos, and they did Pebbles and Bam Bam a bit older, and they were played by Jessica DeChico and Eli Henry, two very amazing voice performers, and it's really amazing to hear what Eli did with it, and it was such a departure, clearly, because he was, you know, they were thinking and up to schemes and stuff. They ended up being like the Fred and Barney of that show. But yeah, it was definitely so nice to hear, you know, a different interpretation of a character that still worked. But yeah, but as far as Bam Bam is concerned, it was just those two words. Bam, bam. That's it.
The next one is for Jeff and Eric. Stefan from Forces of Geek has a few questions. Okay, it's a little long. When performing an iconic character such as Fred Flintstone or Dino, are you trying to nail an impression of Alan Reed or Mel Blanc or capture the spirit of the character? Second part, when doing Fred, Dino, or Bam Bam, was there a point when you decided that's the character, and if that was, when was the moment that it defined it for you?
Wow.
Jeff,
Well, the first question.
Jeff's been with the characters so long and so many iterations. I'm dying to hear his take.
I mean, I think originally, approaching it I would always try to do the best, the closest representation possible. But what happens generally is you end up putting so much of whatever it is you bring to it. And I think everybody who does all the classic voices and has reprised them over the years, put something kind of special, their own soul into it. And it makes it kind of fun to hear everybody's different. It's like James Bond. I mean, there's been so many James Bonds, and it's hard to say for me like what my favorite is because I have favorite movies and favorite lines. But as far as Fred goes, I think I try. I mean, if somebody says, "Wow, that's my childhood," then I kind of feel like I did my job. Whatever it takes to get there. And a lot of times, a director will give you a sense of where they want the character to go or how they want the line to be, not a line read, and that'll just put me right there, you know. So, and then what was the second question, Inez?
Second question is, when doing Fred, was there a point when you decided that's the character? And if there was, what moment defined it for you?
Oh, yes. Well, for years, people said, you don't sound like Fred. It just doesn't sound like him. And I was in my 20s and in my 30s. And by the time I got into my 40s, I don't know if my ear developed a little differently or my voice just changed. I think it took a while for my voice to mature. But once I think I was in my 40s, people would react to it. And that's how you kind of know. You're like, wow, that's you got it. That's really great. And then it just was easier just to get there. But it just took a while. It took 25, 30 years for me.
I had to do it, or else Tony said you're fired, and I had no choice but to just nail it right there. No, only a handful of experiences for me, but even in those, iterances, it's just like, oh, okay, like, it again, depending on who is directing you in the situations and the story, definitely affects the way you're gonna kind of have to bring this old character into this new situation, all the while keeping in mind the essence of the character. But it just depends on where the person that's telling the story wants to take you. And then I guess your job as the actor is just to make sure that it's fine-tuned to what you remember. Every time Jeff does Fred, Gray, who plays Betty, always goes, "Oh man, that's so good." and then when I'm looking at someone like, Gray, who is like modern day June Foray, actually modern day Gray Delisle, she's her own living icon. I'm like, if she's impressed, then it's good because she's also amazing.
She is.
It's great being in that room, and then you got Kevin Michael Richardson doing like his take on Barney. Like would you say that was the original sound, Tony, of Barney?
Isn't that this Jerry Jerry jump in, but the Kevin's Barney is that. Didn't someone else do Barney when Mel Blanc was in the hospital?
Was it Dawes?
I think Dawes did.
It was Dawes.
It was Dawes, right?
Right, and he had that more nasally kind of Barney.
Yeah.
Which I love. Kevin's such a great guy, but I always like that nasally Barney.
Me too.
Of course, I love Mel's Barney.
Right.
But as a kid, when I would see those cartoons, I was like, "Ooh, there's the weird Barney. I like that weird Barney."
Like it's funny because the Mel Barney, I know Jeff also does and has done for commercials and such. I mean, it's technically supposed to sound a bit like more dull or more like a bit more like slower. But even that nasally one, it to me that even sounds dumber. Like, I don't know, Fred. That's not a good idea. Like that. When I hear Kevin and Jeff go back and forth as those characters, it's like, man, Order 12 seasons of
That's
this.
the show to make where we like there's two Barney because Zoom
Right.
makes another Barney. We could have
maybe-
dueling Barneys.
It's like
Oh,
it's like
that's very funny.
Scooby's. It's like Scooby's cousin from the south visits the bedrock. You know, Barney's cousin from the town over. I'm telling you, I would love to see like Fred and Barney at like a bar in Bedrock, just after work before going home,
There you
having
go.
a drink. I mean it would be amazing to see these characters again in modern times. And
they used to do Bush beer. They used to advertising for Bush beer. There's like about a 9-minute commercial for Bush beer that they do. It's so funny.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah, it's great.
Get up.
Okay, next question, guys, is for all of you. Mark from Toon Barn. Anne Margaret's character was Anne Marg Rock. What would each of your Flintstones names be?
Oh, E-Rock Bauza for sure.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a Flintstone name. I have to think about it.
Jeff Boulder? I don't know. Boulderberg?
That's great.
That's cute.
I guess I'd have to steal Stoney Curtis's name. And just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony Cervone, so.
That's
That's what they
my
called me
favorite.
in college. So it was all.
Huh. I'll be thinking about this for hours. All day I'm going to be thinking about it.
If it comes up before we end, just jump in and say, I got it.
will.
All right, I'll move to the next one. This is for everyone again. Vic from Drop the Spotlight. Being part of the storied franchise, is there a favorite memory that you have while participating in a movie or episode of the Flintstones?
Oh, wow.
Take your pick. There's so many to choose from, I guess. Man, well, anything with Great Kazoo in it too, right? Are we picking favorite episodes?
Favorite memory
Favorite memories. Man.
that you have while participating in a movie or episode?
Oh, our participation.
Yeah.
Jeez. Man, oh man.
I think I have one. It's not a movie necessarily, or a TV show, but it was doing the Cocoa Fruity Pebble commercials years ago. I didn't know, but in walks a man. He had to be in his upper 80s. I didn't recognize who he was, and it was actor John Stevenson, and it was sometime in the mid-90s. But looking at the script, I see Mr. Slate there, and so, I mean, he opened up his mouth, and I have to honestly tell you, when he opened up his mouth, my heart started beating like it would in the dentist's office, before I get in the chair. I was like, this is real. It's him. It's Mr. Slate. And I just remember I had to read Barney's lines, and I completely lost it. I missed my cue because I was so caught up in what he was doing. I was like, oh no, wake me up. So maybe that is just something that hits me right now. It's just hearing Mr. Slate's voice.
I guess for me, it was hearing that the opening theme play after the cold open for WWE SmackDown, after finally waiting for it to hit the Blu-ray shelves and popping it in the player for the first time. Knowing that I would be a part of this was put goosebumps on your arms and just go, oh my God, like that's when it becomes that surreal out of body experience where you're not even like the performer in it. It's like these characters are alive and you really had nothing to do with it. And I'm sure Jeff can attest where sometimes you're in the booth for like, hours and hours and then you go back for ADR sessions. Sometimes the takes that they pick, aren't necessarily they may have been Frankenstein together from two different takes.
Yeah.
And it becomes like, did I do it that way? Or I remember doing it that way, but it slowly becomes like, I forget like even doing that. And you're just kind of like mesmerized by everyone else's work that surrounds the voice, like the backgrounds, the music, the animation. That's when it becomes that weird, surreal, out of body experience for me. But I remember just that day, I was like, wow, this is cool. because Flintstones has, again, been around, and if it wasn't important, we wouldn't all be on Zoom in a pandemic talking about it.
Okay. Next one is for Tony. Stefan from Forces of Geek. When directing and producing classic Hanna-Barbera properties, do you feel it's important to tell a story that fits within the history of the character or move them forward?
Both. You know, the answer is both. You always have to respect the history of the characters and where they're coming from. And then you also have to kind of in equal measures do something new, you know, and that's tough to do. And we're not always successful with it, but I think that some of the things over the years have been pretty successful, where it feels like, yeah, this is new, but also really entrenched in where it comes from. And I think with the Hanna-Barbera properties, that's even more important. Like I think you do have to be really respectful of their histories and their origin.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Tony, it's for you again. Mark from Toon Barn. What would the Flintstones in prime time or on Adult Swim look like today?
That's a good question, because I really do like what I guess we would call primetime adult animation, right? Or whatever stuff that's purposefully made for adults. I would hope that if there was a modern Flintstones, it would be made for the whole family. You know, that sometimes with some of the stuff that's clearly meant for adults, animated stuff, there's stuff that's probably inappropriate for kids, right? But and I would hope that the Flintstones would be really layered, that there'd be stuff in there for the parents and also stuff in there for the kids, and it could continue to be a family show. I mean, in some ways, The Simpsons is kind of a family show, so
Yeah.
I hope it would be something everyone could watch at once, and that everyone could get their phones out and look at their phone at once.
Yeah.
Good answer. Okay, next one is for Jerry. Jerry, Gareth from Skewed and Reviewed. Where would you like to see the Flintstones franchise go next?
Let's see. Let me think about that, because when you think about the history of the Flintstones, I mean, the literal, 60-year history of the Flintstones, they've practically done everything. I'm trying to come up with that answer as I recount everything they've doing. I keep thinking of the Jose Jimenez album they did in the 60s where they're in outer space. I mean, the whole thing makes no sense. They're in outer space. Look it up online. This is a very strange Flintstones item. So they've done like everything. They've gone to the World's Fair. They've met the Jetsons. I think the thing that would be interesting is something we've mentioned before, which would be to update the concept of the modern Stone Age family, the utilization, the Stone Age versions of the Zoom, of everything that we're using today. Would be the part of the comedy, and again, what the roles of Betty and Wilma. It would come out almost naturally just by making it based on today's world. By the way, I did come up with my Stone Age name. It's Quarry Beck.
Quarry Beck.
That's all I can figure out.
If I could jump in just for a second, the one thing I wouldn't like to see is, Fred does have some negative qualities, and what I would not like to see is something that focuses on those negative qualities and that takes him to a darker place, or a place that, because we live in some pretty challenging times right now, and I would not like to see Fred portrayed in an overly negative way. Like, yeah, he's a loudmouth and a blowhard and egotistical and all those things, but not very far underneath all that is a really decent guy. So that's what I would want to protect Fred.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Wow. Yeah.
I hope you can do it. I hope it happens.
12 seasons, you say? Okay. Not doing nothing.
So this is for everyone. Vic from Drop the Spotlight. What is one future Flintstone episode or movie you would like to see happen with any special guest or occasion?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that the original series established that they could meet what we would call contemporary celebrities in Stone Age cartoon form. I mean, again, the mind goes on about all the Lady Gagas. Lady Gaga meets Bam Bam or something.
Definitely the Harlem Globetrotters for sure. They've been a fan favorite of Hanna-Barbera. They've met every character from the Hanna-Barbera universe.
The Super Globetrotters would be nice. And the Robonic Stooges might be nice.
Yes. So good.
All right. We've got a few more minutes left, so we're trying to get through as many as we can. And next question is for everyone. Mark from Toon Barn. Did Kazoo really make the Flintstones jump the shark, or are you a closet fan of Kazoo?
I love the Great Kazoo.
Yeah, is that for everybody? Because I love all the crazy stuff that came later.
I'm a big Kazoo. Harvey Korman, come on. I love Kazoo.
Yeah.
What an interesting choice, but it worked so well.
Yeah.
And any interview you watch of him talking about that, he was so like unsure of like doing the voice. Like he was like, oh, I don't know, like if this is, for me. But it ended up being like one of his most well-known characters. Who doesn't want to voice an iconic Hanna-Barbera character, right?
Right.
It's true. I don't think he actually got it. I got to work with him once where he did Kazoo, and people were making such a fuss over him and the character, and he just was very sort of cavalier about it. He just didn't understand how like beloved it was. I remember seeing it for the first time, thinking, "Wow, this is kind of cool. Like what's going on?" And then he was in one episode after another, and it was like he was kind of part of their little secret family. It was just it was really cool.
And then he became Q on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Next question for all of you. Mark from Toon Barn, do any of you subscribe to the conspiracy theory that the Flintstones actually took place chronologically after the Jetsons?
I mean, it's like a post-apocalyptic series.
I've heard that theory.
Whoa, that's really deep.
That's interesting. That is interesting. I've never heard that myself, actually. Wow.
I have heard that, and I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
It'd be cool if, like, you went down beneath the clouds of the Jetsons and the Flintstones were happening on the surface of the earth.
So it would be on AMC, The Walking.
Yeah,
maybe
right.
Warner Brothers could get like George Miller to direct a Flintstones movie.
Actually, redo that last shot from Planet of the Apes with Fred as
Oh my God. That's a great question.
Oh, 11:20, 10:27 is when I get the COVID testing.
Oh, all right. Okay. Next question for everyone. Mark from Toon Barn, can any of you bowl as well as Twinkle Toes Flintstone?
I've been known to throw some pins down. I'm Filipino, so that's practically born in a bowling alley. Filipinos love to bowl. Little weird stereotype of Filipinos you guys don't know, but you learn something new every day. Filipinos like to bowl.
I don't know. After the second game, for me, it all goes downhill.
I'm a terrible bowler, but in the SCOOB movie we did, when Scooby is bowling, we absolutely tipped our caps to Twinkle Toes Flintstone.
Got a few more. Right. One last question, and I think we can make it through. This is for everyone. Vic from Drop the Spotlight. Did you ever imagine the Flintstones would be beloved by so many for so many years and even generations?
I mean, I'd have to say so. I mean, I'm again in that generation of the first round of reruns probably, and I wonder if it's on TV anywhere. I know that the new cartoon is, and you'll be happy to hear this, Jeff, playing on normal television in Canada. So get ready for those foreign residuals. I know Yabba Dabba Dinos is on TV, but
The original
I don't know.
Flintstones is on
You
MeTV.
can
Yeah,
see
it's
it
on
in full,
MeTV,
for example,
right.
Boomerang.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Boomerang
it's,
TV. And now on Blu-ray. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Now
I mean, yeah. When
Don't
you're
have to
a
look
kid,
far.
when you're a kid and you watch it and you see something on TV, at least when I always think it's forever anyway. It's on TV. It's there.
Mhm.
It's forever. You know, and the Flintstones actually in my lifetime have done that. You know, they've
Yeah.
been around, and you know, they're just what we call, I guess, legacy characters now. You know, they're just, you know, they're classics.
You know, we all, in addition to, I will speak for everyone, but in addition to like making this stuff, I think we all really enjoy watching it. Like if I do run across an episode and it's like, oh, I love this one, and then I will stop whatever I'm doing for 22 minutes and finish the episode. But
Yeah.
Flintstones really is one of those things that yeah, it's really fun to make, and it's really fun to work with these great people. But I just love that show, and I love those characters. So I still get as much enjoyment from it as I ever have. So it's not a surprise to me that other people do too.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember visiting Hanna-Barbera like when it was still Hanna-Barbera and not a gymnasium or storage facility. I don't know what it is now, but being starstruck even by just seeing a security cart, like the golf cart, it looked like the Flintmobile, like you know, like Fred Flintstone's car. It had the plastic casing over this golf cart, and I was like, with my Kodak Fun Saver.
Yeah, they made that for some kind of event, obviously, or some kind of publicity purposes. But then they just used it as a golf cart for years. So, like, if you had to move packages or a bunch of boxes, you would do it in Fred's car.
I love it. That's so cool.
So cool. I was like, where is that? I was like, I need to get my hands on that thing. It still exists.
And on that note, we have just wrapped the questions and we are done. So I'd like to thank the awesome panelists for joining us today and all of you guys for submitting your questions and supporting this release. Quick reminder that the Flintstones, the complete series, is now available on digital and coming to Blu-ray October 27th. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Gary with any of your questions. And we are here to help you in any way we can. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you. You
Thanks.
guys too.
Take
Okay.
care.
So when the
Yabba dabba doo!
I was gonna say when the pandemic clears, we get to do this again next year, right? But in person in New York, you get to fly us all out.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Totally.
Noted, Eric. Noted. All right.
Alrighty.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.
Yeah.
Bye,
Great seeing everybody.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right, take care, guys.